4 o'clock, so I would like to call the meeting to order. We do have a special guest here with us this afternoon who I would like to introduce. We will be hearing more about it in Agenda 6.3, but I would like to welcome Brian Hackett from the ministry, who is with us this afternoon. Welcome. I will now call upon Lois Moran to conduct the elections.
So pursuant to our procedural bylaw, I would ask for nominations for the position of chair for the board for 2003.
I'll move Nancy Gregorio. Second.
Member Di Gregorio, will you stand?
I will, but I believe it'll be important for me to say I have been chair for 2 years, and if I am elected chair, I would like to indicate that I will do it until about the end of June, because I don't believe in lifetime chairmanships. So I feel it's important that my colleagues know that right from the onset.
So further for that, ask for further nominations for board chair. Sorry, Terry.
Just a question, can we then, since the chair or the nominee has acknowledged that only till June, would the appointment only be till June then?
If she does
I
step
wonder if
off
that's
at
part
that
of the
time.
motion, or is that something just understood?
Well, June or sooner, whichever comes first.
I don't have it as part of the motion. I just have a note that she's made that she doesn't want to be a chair for lifetime, and she wants to step down at some point.
Okay, I just wanted to consider formalizing the chair's position.
Madam Clerk,
Yes.
in chatting with the chair, that was her statement to me that she felt that 2 years was plenty of time to be in the chair, but that, and that she had, her plans didn't include being chair for the subsequent year, but she would help us and accommodate us by assuming the chair's position until June or such time as. So I think in view of that, there's no need to really add anything to the motion other than to simply move that the chair continue at least until June.
That's my.
So any further nominations for the 2013 chair of police service board? Thank you. Seconder? Thank you. Those in favor? Congratulations, Member Di Gregorio.
Madam Chair.
On chair.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, opposed.
Pardon?
I'm opposed.
Oh, sorry. I will put that down. You're opposed for the nominations to be
Correct.
closed?
No, I'm opposed to the nomination. I was trying to put a
So
condition.
all in favor, yes, and we should have called for opposed.
The motion was for nominations, to close nominations.
Is that what we're doing with that?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so
And
I support that.
Member Di Gregorio is just elected chair by the response, there was no further nominations.
Well, then, I just want to be able to record no. I'm not sure how you would do that, but certainly I wasn't supporting that position.
I'll report that in the minutes. You're opposed to the nomination.
Correct.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to call for nominations for the position of vice chair.
I nominate Jim Duquesne.
Do you have a second? Mr. Kay, do you stand for the position?
I respectfully decline.
Do we have any other nominations for the position of vice chair, since Mr. Kay is not interested in standing for the position? Yes.
Madam Chair, can I suggest that since there is silence in the room, this might be an opportunity for us.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Silence in the room in regards to facilitating that particular request. It might be prudent for us to step out, have a bit of a discussion, come back in and see if in fact we can come to consensus.
If you'd like to put that motion on the table.
That's just a suggestion. If anyone else got a different suggestion, then I'm open to it.
Mr. Kane?
Well, I have a suggestion. If, in fact, we can't come up with a chair, then maybe my
Vice
colleague-
Chair, you mean?
Vice Chair, pardon me, yeah, before it is. That we consider maybe the Vice Chair on a rotational basis.
There's another suggestion.
I could support that, that's how we do it at council. The deputy mayor changes with each month, so I'm sure that would work fine here.
I think that would open the opportunity of a stronger succession plan and feeling comfortable in the role, and I would support that.
Are we all in favor of that? Okay.
There's a motion to.
Yeah, can we have a motion then that the position of vice chair shall be on a rotational basis amongst the board members? Have a seconder to that? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, Chief, we have presentations of the month.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Police Services Board, Chief DeCare, Deputy Chief Sminger-Singer, senior officers, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ryan Diodati, and I'm the Executive Officer to Chief Glenn DeCare. Today I would like to present the Member of the Month Award. If I could please have Detective Tyler Preston and Detective Brian Smythe please come forward. Detective Preston is with our Child Abuse Branch, Detective Smythe with the Services Internet Child Exploitation Unit, or ICE. In 2011, Hamilton Police received a report from two 14-year-olds of a man who was communicating through social media, offering sums of money for sexual relations. Detective Preston investigated and identified the suspect's online persona, his alias, and further potential witnesses. Initial investigation revealed a long history of Facebook associations with excess of 1,200 young females associated online with the suspect. Realizing the risk to youth of the suspect's ongoing activities, he consulted with the Services Internet Child Exploitation Unit, ICE. An operational plan was developed and implemented by Detective Brian Smythe. On April 11, 2012, the suspect attended an address in Hamilton with the intention of meeting a 14-year-old girl for sex. The suspect was arrested at that time and search warrants were executed at his residence. Detective Preston and Detective Smythe's determination, concern, and dedication to removing this predator from the streets was exemplified through their efforts in this case. The culmination of the investigation was made possible by the great teamwork of other members of ICE, Tech Crime, Vice and Drugs, and Uniform Patrol in the arrest. The accused is currently before the courts, charged with multiple sex offenses. Congratulations, Detective Smythe. Detective Preston.
Okay, our year-end report 3.2 with regards to the Hamilton Police Service at McMaster University. We need to table that one because unfortunately Terry Sullivan is down with the flu today, so unfortunately he's not able to be with us. So we'll now go on to item 3.3, which is the year-end report on traffic statistics. Chief?
Inspector Calvert will make the presentation.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Dave Calvert. I'm an inspector of the Support Services Division. Currently today to the board, I'm going to present on the highlights from the traffic report for 2012. In the latest Ontario Road Safety Annual Report, Ontario has the safest roads in North America. The average fatality rate for Canada is approximately 6.5 deaths per 100,000 population. The average fatality rate for Ontario is approximately 4.3 deaths per 100,000. And here in Hamilton, at the same time period, we're at approximately 4.1 deaths per 100,000. So a good news story there. To give you a little bit of context, I reached outside of Canada just to have a look at some of the other countries. And just as a matter of interest, I looked at the US, our partners next door obviously, and their rate is 10.6 per 100,000 for the same time period. This particular graph here shows you the fatalities over a 12-year period. And as you can see, it goes up and down, but the trend line in the middle, which is at 19, and for 2012, we had 18 fatal accidents and 20 deaths, one less than last year. What's important to note is last year in 2011, we had 6 alcohol-related deaths. However, in 2012, we only had 1. What's the Hamilton Police Service doing about this? What are we doing, in fact, with respect to traffic safety? The long weekend holiday traffic safety program ran last year in 2012 and will run again this year in 2013. Each month during long weekends, we've identified areas of concern and we have our officers enforce those particular initiatives. And I'll go through them for you: impaired driving and speeding, distracted driving and speeding, aggressive driving and speeding, seatbelt violations, equipment violations and enforcement, impaired driving, aggressive driving, distracted driving, seatbelt violations, aggressive driving, impaired driving, and what else are we doing? Operation Lookout. This is a program where people and citizens in the community have an opportunity, if they identify someone who they believe is impaired by alcohol driving a motor vehicle, they will call 911 and the communication staff will dispatch a vehicle as quickly as they can to try and find this person. In 2012, we were successful, or the citizens were successful at helping us apprehend 166 people. A good news story. Speedwatch trailer program. We work in conjunction with the city, so members from the traffic division work in conjunction with City Hamilton Traffic. We put out the speed trailer. Many of you are aware of it. It's to assist councillors with complaints, our own area with complaints, and we can address them statistically with this trailer. It gathers information for a week-long period, and then the information, the analysis is taken and sent back to division so they can have a look at what's going on in those particular streets of concern. Aggressive Drivers Hotline, again, something where people can call in when people are driving aggressively. They give us a license plate number, and through the community partnerships, we're able to put out letters, etc., to deal with that issue. The officers deployed to enforce infraction at high collision intersections. Our radio talk show continues with Claus Wagner, Ask a Cop. Our Last Drink program, if you're not aware of that particular program, when our breath techs are questioning individuals that have been arrested for impaired driving, they ask them where they had their last drink. Those that respond, we will send a letter through the Vice and Drug Office to those particular establishments identifying that they had been mentioned during this interview. Last year we sent 37 letters to several different establishments in conjunction with Vice and Drugs and the Alcohol and Gaming Commission. And we do ride lanes as well, obviously. And again, this year, 2012, we partnered with the Bulldogs. Provincial offense notices. $69,197, so substantial increase from 2011. In addition to enforcement, I have to mention that it's important, but in addition to that, what else is important is the education component to this. So just a few things off the top. Just recently we did a ride along with CBC. That news story will come out soon. Late last year, around October, we did distracted driving at Lime Ridge Mall where we brought in the simulator. We had the media come in. We had the community come in and try driving and texting on their cell phone to see what it was like. It was quite interesting. Ride stops, again, way up from 2011, 228,315 as you can see. And our 4-year comparison for motor vehicle collisions, the lowest ever, 8,800 for 2012. And thank you. Any questions?
Inspector Dave, in the report we have in our package, the hazardous moving violations, there's been a big increase in that. Does that have something to do with people texting and maybe using their phones?
I don't know if it has anything to do with that per se. I can answer your question. Unfortunately, I don't have that number right in front of me.
But why is it gone up so much from previous years?
The actual hazardous moving, I'm going to attribute some of it to the increase with the long weekend program. That may be part of the issue right there. That's only been in place this is for 2 years, so it's relatively new.
Sure.
Thank you.
Have a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Could you encapsulate the responses that you get from the motorists who go through the ride program? Say thank you, or they say, why don't you go catch the bad guys, or what's the culture like in the ride line for the officers?
The ones that I've been on and through anecdotal conversation with the members, the majority of responses are positive, and during that period of time when we have the Bulldogs tickets, the obvious question is, do you have any Bulldogs tickets? This past year, we were able to get 10,000 in conjunction with the Bulldogs, so we gave out 10,000 tickets. So they go quickly, and obviously with that many ride lanes. So most of the comments back and forth are very positive. They thank us for doing the job. So I actually haven't had no negative encounters in the last couple of years of doing it. I've done several.
It's different from parking tickets, right?
Not much.
Thank you.
Andy, Jim?
If you have a question, I have a comment. So I can.
Yeah, well, I actually coincidentally, I just received an email, I think it was yesterday, from that went through a ride program. Certainly appreciate the proactive, but I guess her question was, why are we utilizing, I think it was 6 cruisers at this particular ride program? And of course, understanding the needs and the capacity and crime and so forth, why, is there a criteria in regards to how many police officers you need in a ride program?
Not knowing the intersection, sir, if it was a larger intersection, say the traffic circle there at the Delta, where we may run it in conjunction in 2 directions, then you would see possibly 6 cruisers, because we're actually doing traffic going east and west. The other component to that, it may not be all patrol officers. It may be a combination of patrol officers, central breath tech units, and our divisional safety officers, who usually work together when they do the ride program to give them more officers, given the numbers that we have of patrol and the demands for calls. We kind of split it up that way. So that might be the answer in that case, but without knowing the intersection, I can't really say more than that.
Appreciate it. So is there a set criteria in regards to, is there a minimum when you set up a ride program?
There's no minimum written down, but I mean, if we wouldn't necessarily run a ride program with 1 officer, it would be counterproductive and probably unsafe, yeah.
Yeah. So there's no criteria though, other than, I'm hearing there's no criteria. You have to make the decision based on the intersection location.
Yes, that would be fair.
Thank you.
Comment?
If there are no questions, Madam Chair, just looking at the 7-year, 3-year, if I could, the 7-year motor vehicle collision chart. I can't help but notice the sharp increase, and certainly over the number of years it's steadily increased, but the stats alone are just amazing. So there's a lot of activity that's going on here, and a lot of it is going on behind the scenes. It's not you know, not sexy, so to speak, it's not reported on, all that kind of stuff, but a lot of activity, and it's a lot of good work, and so I just wanted to congratulate you and the staff that are out there doing that stuff. Everyone knows. Great stats, and you can't dispute that, you know, just in the 2 years, 2010, I'm talking 10,000 more occurrences that we dealt with. So.
Actually, I raised an interesting question. The province, a number of years ago, probably less than 10, initiated a graduated licensing program. Are we seeing and reaping some of those results as a result of that initiative?
In respect to impaired drivers or
The
collisions?
graduated program, so basically, I guess they can't go on a Trans-Canada highway after, I think it's 2 years. So there's a lot, before you took a license, you can drive anywhere. Well, now there's a sort of staging before they get their full license. Do you find that that's had a positive impact?
I think that has had a positive impact based on some of the things that I've read. But in addition to enforcement, education, and all the programs that the province, Canada, and the Hamilton Police Service provide. So I think it's a combination of everything. But to put my finger on one thing, I wouldn't be able to do that.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Chief?
Chair, members of the board, the road and traffic safety strategy for the Hamilton Police Service is quite complex and deals with enforcement, education, prevention. We have combined a great number of efforts with our CPCs, our community volunteers. There are over 400 community volunteers that participate with us in programs such as the Aggressive Driver Hotline, such as the Child Restraint Seat program where they do the inspections. So every component of the strategy that is not necessarily all carried out by police officers is a key part of enhancing public safety. And we have to also recognize our partners at the city, the Roads and Traffic Department that we have been working with along the lines of implementing technology as well. The red light cameras, which some are permanent, some are mobile, depending on the analysis of collisions and injuries in our city. But I have to tell you that the last 5 years, the members that are out there on the road working every day, it is an absolute credit to their effort every single day, and that is the reason that we need to be continuing to make sure that we provide them with the opportunity to be reactive in the calls for service, but also proactive in the neighborhoods. I've not been to one single community meeting where we have not had some discussion at some level about traffic, high visibility, and traffic enforcement, whether it be speeding, heavy trucks, stop signs. It is what the community's expectation is. It is profound, the impact that our people have had on these programs, but it is not solely the responsibility of the Hamilton Police Service for these record numbers, because there's a lot of agencies that are contributing to this. But the payoff for us as a city is the Allstate Insurance survey for the last 4 years. We have moved up from 31st to 28th. We are the largest city in the province of Ontario with the safest roadways.
Just want to pick up, Chief, hit a point that I really wanted to draw to the attention of the public, and that's that one of the biggest problems that we're faced with in neighborhoods is speeding traffic. And I just recently, I met with staff, and we're looking at everything from speed humps. We have a hump place, I think on Stanley Avenue as a trial. We're looking at speed bumps, rumble strips. But I think it's a growing problem, and I want to salute the work because it's true. We're working very closely with the service as well as the traffic department to address that issue, because it's probably if not the first issue with respect to policing, certainly in the top list of 1 or 2 or 3 that are brought to our attention. So we're hoping to continue that work very shortly. I know that Speedwatch worked out that way, and we moved from citizens to auxiliary to, and so the work that we do in terms of providing the leadership and the synergy, I think is really to be commended for the work that we do at this end. And I can assure you that staff are looking forward to bringing on more work in addressing some of the major problems that we have. Obviously, speed in residential streets is really just never disappearing and becoming increasingly more a problem. So thanks so much to your staff.
I just have one question on technology, and I echo those comments. In fact, my son was just visiting from Edmonton, and he was talking about the fact that he got a ticket from Fuller Radar in Edmonton. we don't use that tool currently, and I don't know if that's a provincial legislation or statute, or is that something the community can actually consider. But it's clear, and Chief's absolutely right. I mean, I don't think I've gone to a neighborhood meeting, gone through an election, where the biggest issues that you hear on a continued basis is running of stop signs in neighborhoods and speeding. And it's also clear that we don't have the capacity to be in every neighborhood to address this significant issue. And so it's about creativity and innovation. So I guess my question is through the chair to the chief. Has the Chiefs of Ontario taken a position on utilization of that technology?
Chair, I'm not familiar that the OACP has taken a position on photo radar or that type of technology. I know that individual services are engaged in those discussions, but I don't think the OACP has taken a position.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you very much. Great news.
Move receipt.
So, move to receive the report. Bernie? Jim, thank you. Any declarations of interest? Hearing none, can I please have an approval of the consent items? Jim and Madeline? Discussion agenda 6.1. Can we have a motion to receive that, please? Move it, Bernie, seconded by Madeline. 6.2. Motion to receive, please. These are all things that we have to follow mandate response. Bernie, the mayor. And 6.3. Chief, do you want to
Chair,
talk
members of
to
the
that?
board, this is a letter that we are in receipt of through the board office from the Ministry of Community Safety and Correctional Services. The ministry regularly participates in an extremely important process of audit and review. And we have with us Brian Haggett, who is going to lead us through the audit process over time. But with your permission, I'd like to turn the floor over to Brian for a quick update.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to thank you for letting me attend your meeting here. As I was here several months ago and introduced myself as your zone rep, part of my job description is to come out to the various board meetings throughout Zone 4 and just liaise with the board members and monitor the progress and things that are going on. One of the things that we are currently involved with at the ministry right now is our inspection cycle. This is our third inspection cycle. It's now well underway. In 2012, we completed 6 inspections on 6 various services in the province. We were at Kingston, Guelph, Cornwall, Durham, Amherstburg, and Shelburne. We've done those services, and right now, we've just completed, at the beginning of January, we were in Barrie. We just completed an inspection of Barrie, and we're going to Belleville next week, and at the end of February, we'll be coming here to Hamilton to inspect your service. The areas of inspections that we're doing, and that we've done on all the other services in the province, will be on bail and violent crime, and police response to high-risk individuals, missing persons, and preliminary perimeter control and containment. So that's the areas that we're going to be looking at. And what we look at is just to make sure that there's the board has policies in place, and that the chief has procedures in place to address those issues. And that's what we look at.
Thank you, Mr. Hackett. And welcome again. Yeah, can I have a motion to receive, please? Madeline? Eileen, thank you. 6.4, Chief, I'd like to now pass it over to you to please do a presentation of the amended budget.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. The Hamilton Police Service remains committed to providing the members of the community with access to details pertaining to the ongoing budget discussions, of the Hamilton Police Services Board. Our budget reports continue to be available to our citizens through the website, are posted online at hamiltonpolice.on.ca. And the service continues to provide access for the public through our live streaming process, and meetings that have taken place to date have been recorded and have been posted on YouTube for those members of the public who are unable to attend in person. I want to thank Joey Coleman for his attendance at the recent budget meetings, including 2 of the 3 town hall meetings that took place. And Joey has shown leadership in the publicizing of all of the details of the budget deliberations. So thank you very much, Joey. The public consumption of information made available through multiple communications platforms, including social media. It helps to inform, it helps to educate, and it helps to engage the members of the public. What we have clearly communicated in our meetings is the value of the work of our members. Most people do not even know the sheer scope and volume of our work that we do oftentimes to restore order when chaos presents. In total, through the live stream and through the YouTube postings, approximately 145 viewings have taken place. And today, the Hamilton Police Service makes recommendation that the board approve the 2013 Police Service operating budget at an amended 3.9%, representing an increase of $5.3 million. Previous budget submissions were presented on November the 27th and December 17th, 2012. During those meetings, many of the board members made public statements related to getting the budget information to the hands of the public and enhancing public access and education. During those previous meetings, the service received the board's direction also to find efficiencies and savings where possible. Throughout 2012, 2.5 days of consultation with community members took place in development of the board's 2013 to 2015 business plan. Our business planning process continues to be a leader in the province, well entrenched in our organization, and more importantly, entrenched in our community, as we continue to advance strategies built on partnerships and important tenets of community-based policing. The service held 3 public town hall meetings in January. These meetings were widely publicized through multiple media agencies and through social media. All of our city councilors were notified of these meetings on January the 4th, 2013. Notified of the dates, times, and locations of the meetings, and they were provided with bulletins to advertise within their constituencies. Overall, the comments of the citizens were positive in relation to the services and programs of the Hamilton Police Service, with support identified for COAST, the 911 operations, traffic enforcement, domestic violence, support for women and children, the school liaison officers, and high visibility neighborhood patrols. The case preparation unit, our St. Joe's protocol, along with our court staff review, all designed at cost avoidance programs, drew interest and supportive comments. Concerns were identified, including the ability of the service to retain officers with experience, ongoing increase in policing costs, sustainable, affordable policing, and the ability of the taxpayer to pay, and increases that are anticipated in future related staffing requests. The Hamilton Police Service is committed to producing public safety, and one way to enhance the safety of the motoring public is through active enforcement, as identified in the presentation you just received. Our citizens identified as an issue the revenue that is generated from traffic tickets, and the revenue generated goes to the city through the Provincial Offences Act office. The idea that was advanced was to direct some of that revenue to the police budget. In addition, the issues related to suspension from duty were addressed, more specifically, suspension with versus without pay. This discussion took place within the context that any change would require a change in the legislation of the Police Services Act, and any legislative change is outside the scope or authority of this board and of this service. Discussions of salary, benefits, and wage containment within the board and association collective bargaining context was also discussed. It is clear from the history of the board bargaining that reductions or savings to future budgets related to salary and benefits must be won by the board at the bargaining table. Savings in salary and benefits cannot be expected to come from the operating budget of the service at the time that the service implements the decisions and agreements of the board. The public identified options for reductions that included cutting the mounted unit, laying off officers, cutting salaries, taking unpaid days, cutting 10% of staff, and imposing a mandatory zero. Also on January the 4th, 2013, the Hamilton Police Service repeatedly publicized the email address made available for any of our citizens to utilize in the event that they were not able to attend any of the town hall meetings. In total, the service has received 7 emails, 2 letters, and 2 phone calls in 17 days. Generally supportive comments related to programs and some critique of the increase that was requested are evident in those emails and letters received. The Hamilton Police Service has strategized to implement reductions to eliminate financial impacts while ensuring a commitment to public safety and the ongoing operational needs of this service. We are proposing that the 2013 budget be approved by the board with the reductions that are the result of these strategies being implemented. We have adjusted time, deliverables, and expectations, and we will phase in projects over longer time periods. We have deferred purchases, we have reduced costs on some initiatives, we have increased revenue estimates, and we have added, as recommended by the board, an increase in transfer from capital reserve. The overall reduction from the November 27, 2012 budget of 5.25 is in excess of $1.8 million or 1.35%. We are committed to the 7-year strategic staffing plan. This budget includes the additional 21 new personnel. Significant savings have been identified by altering the hiring dates to hire 10 officers in May and 10 officers in September. This strategy reduces the financial burden in 2013. However, it must be recognized that it also pushes an $800,000 pressure immediately to the 2014 budget, which will amount to 0.57% next year. It is important to remember that the delaying of hiring strategy also defers the benefits into 2014 that will be realized by the hiring of these officers. Delayed or staged hiring presents a continued challenge to both the overtime and the call-in budgets and will push the anticipated gains in response times further into the next calendar year. We have gone further to review the 21 requested positions, and the service must advance with this request. We continue our business process improvements, our technology implementation. However, today we are absolutely confirming the requirements of the new hires. We have conducted a very thorough analysis of the 2012 overtime and sick time budgets. We have reduced the overtime budget for 2013 by $26,000, while also reducing the sick leave budget by almost $30,000. Not knowing what lies ahead in terms of major investigations, cases, protests, demonstrations, or critical incidents, the decrease in overtime funding is a concern, and we will manage this risk through aggressive supervisory review and commander approval processes to mitigate that risk. Equipment, supplies, and services are being deferred or phased in over 2013 and now into 2014. This will result in 2013 reductions, however, will impose a budget pressure into 2014 as identified moments ago. Computer services, the crime analysis project development, crime mapping software acquisition, and the network switch upgrade project are all being spread over the next 2 budget years. This also means that the benefits to be realized within these programs will in fact be delayed. This is particularly concerning with respect to the crime mapping project. There is a significant body of research clearly indicating that police officers require the tools related to crime analysis to be available to them in order to continue to be successful in the ongoing pursuit of public safety and crime reduction. Analytical ability, major case management, the requirements within adequacy standards, and technological support systems are critical to our success. They are required in order for us to link evidence, crimes, persons, patterns, and forensics, and these systems have been the subject of multiple commissions and reports. The availability of a real-time crime data center was most recently advanced again by Justice Opal in November of 2012 with the issuance of his report from British Columbia related to the Picton murders. Missing and murdered women is a critical national issue, and represented in the missing and murdered women is a disproportionate number of Aboriginal women. Better analysis and more timely data helps solve crime, and more importantly, prevents victimization while helping us to maximize deployment strategies and our resources. The deferring of the network switch upgrade means that the service is not in a position to maximize savings associated to the cost of telephone lines. This infrastructure switch project must be completed before we can migrate to a VoIP system to reduce our telephone line costs. The risk in this case is in fact being managed, but is a very real concern to us in that the current technology switches are 11 years old. They are at end of life, and parts availability and manufacturer support and design are at end of life as well. Since our last meeting on December the 17th, the Hamilton Police Service has received contract finalization details related to the purchase of our police vehicles, and the city has reduced the cost per liter for fuel. At the same time, with the passage of the year end, it now allows us to review the actuals versus the estimates. As a result, we have seen significant reductions of $120,000 in our vehicle account and $63,000 associated to the reduced cost of fuel. We have looked at every strategy to find savings within the budget. As was done previously within our fleet section, the service is also making a recommendation to the board in this budget to upgrade employee qualifications and functional responsibilities through a reclassification. This strategy has enabled us to remove approximately $123,000 in expenditures that would be required to be contracted out, and this represents a $77,000 annual savings. Previously, the board approved an increase in fees associated to employment and volunteer police checks. As a result of the previous board approval, 2012 revenues have been assessed, and the service has increased the 2013 revenue estimate by $130,000, which is, by generally accepted accounting principles, a conservative estimate in moving forward. There is a commitment within the 2013 budget to utilize reserves in the amount of $500,000. Further discussions took place by the board related to an increased contribution from reserve. The purpose of the reserve is for emergency situations to deal with unfunded and unforecasted liabilities that present themselves through the calendar year. The service experienced the need to access reserve funding in 2012 when a serious computer technology issue emerged requiring $200,000 in repairs, and historically funds have been accessed for emergency generator repairs in the amount of $350,000. In compliance with the board's discussions, a recommendation is made to increase the contribution from reserves by $250,000 for a total of $750,000 in 2013. The use of the reserve is well within the board's authority. However, it cannot be done without fully informing the board that this exposes the board to potential risk through a reserve depletion. Utilizing all of the information, the analysis, the reviews, the strategies, combined with listening to the concerns of the board and to our citizens, the operating budget is finalized and established at 3.9% in full recognition of a budget pressure of 0.63%, or $800,000 being moved to 2014, without the finalization of the 2013 negotiations between the board and the police associations of the Hamilton Police Service and the Senior Officers Association with respect to salaries and benefits. In conclusion, I would like to recognize the efforts of Mr. Ted Mason, Mr. John Randazzo, Superintendent Mike Shea, Deputy Chief Leendertz, Deputy Chief Gert, and the members of the Senior Command for their contributions to the 2013 budget deliberations. I also want to recognize our citizens' continued investment in policing that allows the Hamilton Police Service to deliver public safety. Most importantly, I wish to recognize the delivery of service to our community by our sworn and civilian members as we work to ensure the safety of the public through our prevention and education programs, combined with our commitment to enforcement through this budget, which supports the legislated requirement to provide adequate and effective delivery of service to our community. And we would now make ourselves available to your questions.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions?
Well, I'm going to save questions later. I just wanted to provide something that's missed in those forums, and something that I've since done some research on and agree with the chief, is that the assessment growth that communities experience, there should be a portion amount of that, that should be part of the consideration in the context of the police services budget. And I think it needs to flush out, but it's certainly something that I'm prepared to champion. I think it makes sense when you have growth in a community. You obviously require policing in those areas, and that there should be an associated revenue that comes from that that's attached to the police services. So that I wholeheartedly support principle. I mean, how it works is another story, but it was mentioned in here, and that was raised at some point. So I just want to make sure that that's part of, if the chief accepts, that would be part of the discussion in regards to the consultation.
Any other questions?
Okay, I guess I've just got a couple of things. First of all, I guess my concern is, first of all, you need to understand that I've had over 2,000 contacts since we started with the police budget, through via polls, emails, phone calls, and of course, again, just this weekend at Westcliff Mall. So obviously, I've had a lot of contact. Obviously, people see me as a person that's been challenging the status quo in regards to the budget, and obviously became a bit of a magnet in regards to the many concerns that are coming from the community. So one of the questions that was asked of me, and I'm going to propose it through the chair, is that somebody had identified that there's many communities that have police, the 100,000 to 150 to 100,000 employees, or sorry, what is it? 153 is ours, or 154 officers per 100,000 is what our current stat is in Hamilton.
Our ratio is about 153.
And the average in Ontario is, through the chair?
197.
197. So there's many communities in Ontario that are well below the 197. And one individual had indicated that a number of those communities are well under the 197. In some cases, 155. I think Peel, Halton, 140, 155, 156. There's a number. Ottawa is another one that is well below that particular average. How many of these services are actually hiring new officers this year to meet those targets? Do we have that stat? And is there any that's not?
So the information that I have before us, the last time we looked at this, fairness would be before the new year. York, the information that I have has requested a 5.1% budget increase, and in that is a request for 18 constables and 33 civilians. Peel, 3.9% increase is the last information I have, with a request of 22 officers. Waterloo originally started with a 10% budget request with 19 civilians, and I believe that they have finally approved that at around 7.1, but I'm not 100% on that number. Halton was approved at 3.87 with 16 officers, and the other one that I had to look at was Edmonton, who resolved, I believe, at 6% for 29 new officers.
Do we have Ottawa? Because I know Ottawa's below that average as well.
The last information I have on Ottawa is 5%, which was 2.5% increase in police budget and 2.5% assessment growth on a $256 million budget, but I do not have the officers requested in that one.
Okay, I appreciate those answers, but the premise from that one individual is that he is aware that our communities below the average that we cite that have not or do not have increases in officers to meet that standard. And I just wanted, so that was the comment from one individual. The other issue was, and of course this is the one that was overwhelming, and I think I'm going to refer to, we have a report that was done. This is the what is this called? The Hamilton Services Staffing Performance Management Plan Staffing Development Study, prepared June, August 2011 by 7-year staffing committee. And in that, they identified, I believe it's on page 62 of that report, if you find it, if there are cuts to be considered in regards to actually meeting the needs of the community. The top two that were identified were potential positions to cut: mounted patrol unit, 5 positions. And then goes on to say the action team, 42 positions consisting. Coincidentally, in this report, it also identifies that 21 officers were taken off the beats and supplemented the action team. So the first, I guess, goal and objective that appears that the chief's trying to fill is to ensure that we replace those 20 officers that are supplementing the action team. So the question is, if the report in itself clearly identifies these areas could be considered, and it would in fact not impact on, in fact would increase the response times and so forth, and meeting your desired numbers of 60-40, why is this not part of the consideration or being offered up in your budget?
Okay, Madam Chair, first of all, let's go back to the issue of the policing services with a lower ratio. So according to the Ontario Municipal Board data, that would appear to be Halton, Waterloo, York, Durham, and Ottawa. And it is interesting to note of all of those, each one of those possesses a lower crime severity index than Hamilton. Hamilton's crime severity index sits at 92, and all of those jurisdictions have a lower crime severity index, and I believe Halton sits somewhere around 35. Using just the measure of police officers per ratio of 100,000 is not painting the accurate picture of what is required to police in that community. So never has the service sat here before the board and said that we rely on that figure in isolation. There is a different crime pattern for each of the cities that we sent.
Madam Chair, just on that point, so Windsor has, I believe it's around 202 officers per 100,000. And it's my understanding that their crime rate is in fact comparable, so they have more officers per 100,000, yet their crime rates are comparable to Hamilton, which would suggest that having more officers doesn't necessarily beat down that number either.
It is dependent on each of the communities and the type of crime. There's a lot of things that go into that. Social issues, housing, job, employment, economics, healthcare, all of that presents itself. What we've done here in Hamilton is we have looked at a lot of those dynamics versus what we need to provide here, keeping in mind the context of the workload analysis. The workload analysis indicating that work has gone up in and around 36,000 hours of additional amount of work that is created by the same number of calls. I don't know if those factors present themselves in Windsor. They present themselves in Hamilton.
That's fair enough, Chief. I just want to make sure that those that are asking questions are being answered for. 91. So on page 91 in this report, so if somebody had asked, sometimes if you accept a plan, you better understand the financial consequences of such a plan. Page 91 of this particular report says, and this is regarding how much proactive time should the patrol division have. This is a policy decision, not a calculated decision. It's based on the desired level of performance and what the citizens are willing to fund. So the question that came back to me is, what studies have we done to understand what this community is prepared to pay for?
What we have done as we continue to assess how we deliver services here is we have looked at our staffing. We've looked at the availability of staff on shifts. We have looked for and we have altered shifts to make sure that we can maximize the ratio of proactive and reactive time. We have studied within each of the beats the amount of time that they have, given the goal of being available for 40% of the time being proactive, 60% of the time being reactive. Keeping in mind the requirements, as you have just heard in the traffic report, for officers to be available. We have looked at internally as much information as we can, keeping in mind that our response times are reviewed monthly. We do receive input from the community on response times. Sometimes that comes in the form of complaints to response times. But we look at each one of those cases where we can and see what is taking place on our street. And one of the issues that is of great concern to us is the number of high priority calls that come into the Hamilton Police Service that require our immediate attention and having the capacity within our staff to actually be able to respond to those.
Okay, the question specifically, Madam Chair, is it clearly indicates in this report that I believe had a lot of experts contribute to it, says that the desired level of performance and what the citizens are willing to fund. So the element that people are asking is, what research did we do to understand affordability in this community and ability to fund this particular model that was chosen?
What we have done is we have done a comparative analysis through the Ontario Municipal Board stats with respect to other jurisdictions, where we sit on the price per capita, where we sit on price per household, see what that balance is. We did not go out into the community and ask any individuals or survey about what they are willing to spend on policing. We did this through the research, through the data review, through the documents that we have.
Appreciate that answer. The other question I have is I don't know if we got, there was a second component, because we were dealing with I don't think we got to, because I interrupted you on the 150,000, sorry, the 100,000 stat. We dealt with that part of the question. The second part was on potential areas of cut. And through the consultant report, they did identify, I don't know if this is the order that they put forward, because you had indicated that if you were to cut, you had suggested in past board meeting that you would look at reducing the hours at the station on the mountain. You indicated that you'd cut the activity on coast, and you also indicated that the liaison officers in the schools would be the other consideration. Yet when I look at this report by in the context of where you could make cuts, the first two they offer up again is the mounted patrol unit and the action team. Doesn't mention those other areas that you identified.
What we did there, as previously indicated to the board, is we commissioned a committee under the direction of Superintendent Bill Stewart, and he was tasked with the responsibility to interview and meet with our senior officers and to identify with their input, the input of senior management, all the areas where potential savings could come or potential cuts could come. So taking all of that information supplied by our senior management team, we have prioritized the positions that were previously identified for reductions, although we looked at the entire organization. The other thing that is important is that we've also reviewed that in terms of adequacy standard and what is required in law. And the positions that are previously mentioned to reduce if we have to go are positions that are in fact not required by adequacy standard, which allows us the first place to make cuts.
Appreciate that. The next question I have through the chair is the police services budget in 2000, the overall budget was around 82 million. So can I get clarification on that, Madam Chair?
What, I'm sorry, what's that?
Back in 2000, what was the police budget of that day? The overall police budget, around 82 million?
It might have been around there. I remember in 2002 it was 85 million.
That's fine. 2002, 85 million. Madam Chair, currently we're now looking at, so what time frame is that? That's over 15 years? So another 2-3 years at this rate, we will see an absolute doubling of the police services budget. Is that correct to the chair?
What's the number that you have for what year?
I think Ted just indicated that 2002 was 85 million.
I'm pretty sure it was 2000.
Yeah, that's got to be close. The stats that I have here, Madam Chair, we've gone back to 2003. 2003 it was $91 million, and it was $135 million for 2012. Percentage of change over 2003 to 2012 is 47%. Percentage of change, that's for the Hamilton Police Service. Percentage of change for the paramedic service is 64 and the fire service is 61. So the city's increase is 42.
So I'm trying to understand this. So if it was 85 then and it's 150 now, it's almost doubling of the overall budget. So can you help me understand that and the viewers? How do you go from 85 to 155 million and claim 40% increase?
Okay, so when we look at the increases and what makes up the percentage of the increase, it was a $24 million increase that we looked at, which I think it goes back to about 2005, and of that, 19 million of the 24 million is contractually negotiated salaries and benefits component. That is what made up the majority of that, not service, not provision of service or infrastructure stuff, not the equipment services component. So that's the last figure that I looked at. So your question again is?
I was just trying to explain, when you look like just at the raw numbers, back in 2002, it was 85 million. Today we're approaching 150 some plus million. So it's almost a doubling of the overall police budget.
Okay, you can say doubling. It's an additional 50% on top of our budget. Yes.
The other question, and this is another person that sent one in, is that he said that in 2004, I believe it was 2004, his bill was $290 on just the police component. His budget has increased by well over 40% of the bill since then. So it's over 600. So basically a doubling of his bill since 2004. Would you dispute that to the Madam Chair?
I have no data before me that would allow me to confirm, Marcus.
Thank you.
I haven't seen what they looked.
Appreciate it. So those are the questions I have for now, Madam Chair, and I will have reserve my comments at the conclusion of the questions.
Jim?
Madam Chair, I have a question through you to whoever can answer. I wasn't here when the last collective agreement was freely negotiated, but can someone give me a sense of when that actually took place? Was it 2010, 2011?
Yeah. Negotiations commenced in 2009 and it was resolved in 2010.
So through you, Madam Chair, that was a 4-year deal, I believe, back then. So we basically known that 3.62 was going to be the budget pressure probably for the past 3 or 4 years, and all of a sudden this year we're extremely shocked that the chief brings forward a 3.62 maintenance budget when, you know, it's been on the books basically for 4 years. So I'm just a little surprised at that.
We negotiated.
Yeah. Oh, I wasn't sure of the timeline.
Because I wasn't on the board at that time, so I...
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions, first-time questions? Gordon?
Chief, through you, Madam Chair, one of the questions I would have, and I'll make my comments later, but if you were to take, the big problem I'm having is with the new bodies. You need to know that. I'm speaking as not just a board member, but as a counselor and who's living in the community. And, you know, was there any attempt, and obviously and I hear you when you mentioned the 0.5 to 7% pressure moving into next year, and I know we have some homework benefits next year, and there's a lot of things I'm sure that we could talk about in addition, but is there any attempt, what would happen if we didn't put 10 in this year, when we moved them forward? What would that do for us in terms of, you know, reducing the gap? I'm focused on the gap, the $374,000 gap that I see. I'm trying to get through that so that I can present something to council that I think I can sell. And it's so if we delayed those 10, which, you know, I understand 5 we're going east and on the mountain or wherever, and then we have some specifics, but what would that do? Would that, did you guys consider, through your Madam Chair, did staff consider looking at not just delaying them, but putting them into the next year, like whether it be 10? I'm asking for 10. I'm sure you looked at, did you look at 15, 10, 5? Just trying to deal with that human resource issue that, you know, obviously flies in the face of everybody today is looking at reductions in staff. So I don't know why we should be any different. So that's sort of a common question in the marketplace. So, for you, Madam Chair, to the Chief, maybe you want to address that for me, please.
We've given great consideration to the pressure that is put upon our people in terms of the work that is demanded. We've looked for efficiencies within the service. As I mentioned earlier, we have altered their shift schedule. We have more officers now available in the afternoon hours in an effort to alleviate some of those pressures. We have looked at every component of our organization that we can. However, the service is in need of those 20 positions. We've looked at the finance component, we looked at the deferral component, but as I made comments earlier, also when we do the deferral, we also don't realize those benefits of having those officers here in terms of work productivity, sharing that load, and the obvious benefit of having the officers available. So in looking at that, right now we're sitting in a position where fraud is changing in the way that it takes place in our city. It is changing in the use of technology. We have put out many publications regarding scams, the granny scam. That our citizens are being defrauded. Sitting right now, we have 80 welfare frauds pending assignment to investigators. We have 45 major fraud investigations with no investigators to assign. We looked at the opportunities to reduce staffing in traffic to alleviate some of that burden. As you saw earlier, the average number of fatalities taking place in this city over the last 50 years continues to be 19 per year. People continue to drive on our streets with increased levels of impairment, and we were 5 arrests higher in 2012 than we were in 2011 of those that drink and drive. And 2011 was the highest number of impaired drivers in the last 15 years. We've looked at our vice and drug area to see if there could be some reductions there. However, we also understand the prolific nature of drugs and drug activity. I go back to the search report that I've referred to many, many times. In 2010, 2011, that area, a little bit before that, our cases were about 1,400 drug cases per year. Then in 2010, 2011, they went up to about 1,800 cases per year. And I anticipate the final numbers coming in 2012 stats to be over 2,000 drug cases that we dealt with last year. From the search report that was done here and the impact of drugs, 30% of persons who commit robberies had a previous drug conviction, 58% of those that robbed a financial institution had a drug conviction, 38% of those that committed a commercial retail robbery had a drug conviction, 43% of those who committed a home invasion had drug convictions, 22% of persons who are arrested for street robberies have drug convictions. So we don't need to be taking any work away from vice and drugs. We need to be putting more in. School resource officers, we looked at that, and we are a strong supporter of that program because of the youth outreach, the youth diversion, getting young people away from the criminal justice system. We are looking for alternatives to having it done strictly by the police. We work with the John Howard Society. We have partners through the community that are helping us to deal with restorative justice. We looked at our bear unit and making reductions there, and that, once again, we don't believe is possible. Bear has been reducing the incidence of robbery, auto theft, and break and enter to people's homes. And in the break and enter categories, we have more than maybe 50% reductions over the last number of years. Things that particularly concern me, the things that keep me up at night, we have over 600 registered sex offenders in our city that we are required to monitor and that we are required to have them enroll here. And we need more people to make sure that we are protecting women and children from those that would prey upon them in our community. Last year, the CAB unit, the child abuse branch, the number of cases in the child abuse branch increased to over 700. A 151% increase, with those 6 investigators now carrying in excess of 100 cases each. I don't think that it's appropriate to ask our people to work and carry 100 cases of that order of magnitude that have the potential to have incredible levels of victimization in our city. So with respect to deferral, we've looked at everything. We have taken the fiscally responsible way, we've done the analysis, but at the end of the day, this side of the table has to follow the law, which is to provide adequate and effective delivery of service to the community, and we have to work to protect victims from crime. So although we've looked at it, we don't believe that there's a possibility to push these out any further than we are.
Okay, Chief, I'm pleased that you're being kept awake at late as well. I will save my comments to when to bed.
Eileen, first time question.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the Chief, I just want to say thank you for you and your team to come into us with a smaller number. You've listened to our concerns. I just have a concern about the deferral on the equipment and the computer services. I just want to make sure, you talked about it in your preamble at the beginning about the risks that we're taking, or that you're taking with this equipment. How is this going to affect our service?
What we have done there is our manager, it falls within the domain of Superintendent Shea on that side of the house. We have actually purchased some of the switches that are coming to end of life. We've purchased them while we can access them, while we can get them. Disaster management, disaster recovery, continuity of service, operational continuity is paramount for us. So we have mitigation strategies in place. We have lessened the exposure and the risk, but are we in a position where at any time there could be significant failures? Yes, there is. And in policing, we don't have any other. We don't call anybody. People call us, and we don't have the capacity to call anybody else. So we need to make sure that we have done the risk mitigation, which Ross and his staff have done. But quite frankly, they are at end of life. They're at the end of their life, and in order for us to actually move forward and realize savings through the VoIP technology, we have to do the infrastructure piece first. So because we're delaying the infrastructure piece, we're actually going to push out the benefits and the cost savings further down the road as well.
Thank you.
I didn't get into this actual budget of 2.9. I guess what concerns me is like taking a mortgage, taking a loan and paying the price a year from now. So can I ask through the chair, your plan, the strategy in regards to officers being hired? I think it's been suggested that the after recommendation was 61. You were generous enough to bring it down to 20 to try and be fiscally responsible. So how do you see next year's budget with this phased approach on top of how many officers are you looking to have next year? To the chair.
Chair, at this point, what we have said all along is that we have provided a strategic level vision for the service on many fronts. The crime analysis front, the enterprise resource management front, our human resource strategy, our long-term capital requirements for a new facility. We have been very strategic in laying out that path. What we have also said, and we continue to deliver on, is the programs where we can find efficiencies within the service. So I have highlighted to the board several times things like the St. Joe's protocol, where we're trying to transfer responsibility for individuals that we have in our custody to St. Joe's in a more timely fashion, recouping hours that were not spent sitting in the emergency. Deputy Gertz started the case prep project some time ago. We have been able to recoup in excess of 3 hours on average for our officers who are sitting doing the paperwork and the Crown packages that are presented for court. As with all of our business, we do not look at any one item in isolation. The interrelationship of everything we do must be taken into context. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue to strive for our long-term vision, so we make sure that we move the service forward to provide the best service that we can. But we will be mindful of the performance measure metrics that we have in place for our programs. They will be assessed in terms of the delivery of service, meeting the needs of the neighborhood, looking at community-based policing moving forward. How does that fit in with the reduced achievements that we're making in reducing crime across the city? And then we will make a decision about what that looks like in terms of staffing, keeping in mind all the other discussions we've had. Where does technology fit into this? Where do other agencies fit into this? In our social navigator program, the police are not taking on everything. Where we have moved from social service of last resort, we're now the social service of first resort, but we're now having to push away from that. And that's why we're partnering with our social agencies and getting people into the proper care that they need, because not every problem is a police problem. So the answer to the question is, it's an ongoing assessment. We do know the 2014 budget pressure moving forward is about 0.64%, just over $800,000. That's a result of the deferrals moving forward, plus the negotiated settlements that will come from the Junior and Senior Association that is within the control of the board and those agencies. But we will assess as we go. I can't give you a firm number now. It's not fair because we don't know what the benefits are of the programs that we're trying to put in place to reduce those expenditures.
So can I ask the question a different way? What does the strategy that we currently put forward in the next 3 years recommend? understanding what you've already said. So how many officers is it recommending to hire in the next 2 years?
Yeah, our strategy from the 7-year staffing plan is 61, 45 officers and 16 civilians, keeping in mind that there essentially has been no civilian hires in this organization over about a period of 10 to 12 years.
So, Madam Chair, even with this pressure, there is a chance, regardless of the efficiency you find, that you'll be coming back asking for another 20 officers?
I don't believe that to be accurate. Is it in the vision? Yes, it's in the vision. But again, it's part of a much larger project.
Okay, and I guess back to my mortgaging question. So basically, you're locked in on the 20 additional officers. It's clear in the report that the adequacy, the amount of patrol doesn't fit that, neither does the action. You're not suggesting to move on those two items at all to try and alleviate some of the pressures by moving those onto the beats. You're indicating that that there's a pressure of 0.61 or 64 next year with $800,000. We have a strategy that clearly identifies the next 3 years we should be hiring 61 officers. You've indicated that you're looking for efficiencies. The numbers might be less. So what do you have? Do you have any idea? Normally we do forecast, the 5-year planning. You've got a strategy. Are you suggesting that you have no idea what range you'll be asking for in the context of the budget in 2014?
First of all, let's make sure that we're accurately reflecting what is required in law, and your comment is that the action strategy is not required in law. I disagree with that. The action officers are frontline delivery of service officers. They are involved in crime prevention, which is a requirement of a section of the Police Services Act. They are available to do frontline duties and the provision of emergency response. All of those, I believe, are Section 32 requirements of the Act. So I don't accept that they are not required in adequacy. The mounted unit, I am in agreement. That is not something that is required in adequacy. What that means, though, is I'm not going to sit here now with not having all of the data before me to make a good strategic business decision. With this command and in concert with our senior officers, I'm not going to make a decision based on information that we don't have.
Appreciate it. Madam Chair, last year at the budget process, the chief had suggested that the possibility of coming in at 5% this year, and in fact, that was our original budget. So I would think that you have a line or an appreciation for next year what that budget ask might be. Do you have a range at all?
Madam Chair, that's irrelevant to our discussion.
Well, Madam Chair, in fact, it is very relevant, because this whole budget is premised on deferring some of those costs to next year's budget. So it is very relevant for those viewers and those people around this table. We understand what kind of pressures may be dealt with next year, because what we're doing here is deferring some of these costs to next year's budget.
So, add them on to this one.
Well, I'm waiting for the answer to that.
Chief?
The budget pressure that will move forward right now into 2014 is 0.64%.
Which you've already stated. Yeah. Mr. King?
Madam Chair, what we don't know about the crystal balling that we're trying to do right now is what kind of efficiencies we hope and what new means of revenue that we may be able to find for 2014. It's been explained, or at least been asked a couple of times very eloquently, quite frankly, in the public consultations by a couple of citizens about the POAs, and they were very surprised to learn that $9 million is generated in POAs, and none of those funds come back to the police service. And it was suggested that that might be something that we look at. And we're talking about $9 million here, and we're debating 367. I know it's all taxpayer funding, and we're not trying to suggest that it isn't an issue. But at the end of the day, we don't know what new revenue sources we're going to have. And so when you look at some of the pressures that could be offset by some of these increased revenues, the impact could be a lot less. So it could be more, it could be less. We really don't know. I just want to make that point.
Madam Chair, could I move to call the question?
Yes.
Well, Madam Chair, one question. The question I asked, Councillor Ferguson asked in the last budget session last year, in regards to what you expect for the budget to be next year. The chief did answer that question at that time. So the question I asked is no different than the question he's already asked in the budget process a year ago.
and I have no ability to answer that because we have no collective agreement that has been established between the board and either of the associations, so I have no concept of what that is going to actually mean.
And you've said that, I think, about 3 or 4 times in the past 45 minutes.
Like,
Yeah.
could I ask that we call a question on the
Yes.
budget?
Well, no comments.
Any comments before I call the question? Bernie, did you say you have the comment?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I want to just thank the chief and all senior staff, everybody from chief deputies down, Ted, Linders, and George, and Shay, and Deb. You know, I think what it's coming down to is what we do and how we do it, and how we choose to do it. You know, all this stuff that's been reported today, I'm well aware, you know, we've done some good work, we continue to do good work, good video, sound video work, the value of our work and our members is very clear. We're working in solid strategic partnerships. We're doing all those things. I realize the .57 shift, the $800,000. Those things, you know, and I'm not going to go into a long diatribe. I'm going to cut right to the chase. You know, I think what it's coming down though to is what we do and how we do it, what we choose to do, and obviously the chief with his and his team have said this is what we need to do, and I think if you go to any organization today, they'll outline what they need to do and how they need to think they're going to be able to do it. In many cases, you know, there's deferrals, and major corporations are letting go thousands of people, all obviously knowing full well they want to do more and need to do more. And you know, and when I look at and I apologize to everyone the last weekend who've been so kind to deal with a lot of the questions, and certainly the good counselor and the mayor joining with me in asking a lot of questions. When I look at the process though, I'm going to tell you right now, you know, I said if we get into it wouldn't fly at 5-2. I think we're close. I think we're close, but I still don't think, I would speculate that this will not fly yet at council, and that's really my fear, and really something that I need to convey very clearly. Not that I'm just sort of sitting back and speculating facetiously or without any contact, as much as, you know, the chief has been very good in his presentation, very clear, and there's a terrific amount of pressure around the table at council. I need to bring that piece here wearing 2 hats. So today, and we've had discussions, I want to just say right up front that I will not be supporting this budget, and I'm taking it to council and seeing where it goes there, and certainly, hopefully, you know, we can get through this whole exercise. I need to also make it very clear that much of what is taking place over the last, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks has taken place before. It just seems that this has been an open show and obviously handled that way, and I think that that's made it somewhat difficult and challenging, but it's the right thing to do in so many ways. But I can tell you that, and when I read comments like this board, historically or whatever, is a servant of the chief, I got to tell you, somebody's living in a time warp, and maybe they're still in servitude, but I can tell you this board has worked in solid partnership with the staff and the chief and the operation for the number of years that I've been here, and somehow we've gotten there. You know, I've spent time with a number of chiefs, both here across this province. They work chronically with their boards, and I can tell you I've seen it work. This will work. I just think we're just a little short still, and I want to just respectfully thank the chief and his staff for bringing this to the table. I now wanted to make my position very clear going to council, and for that reason I will, and I've had discussions with the mayor and Terry and some of my colleagues here, that'll be my position today. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's funny, I had a phone call from a board member in Belleville and had indicated that a number of the board members he had were teachers and principals and so forth, and the challenge is when you come from a culture that you meet, you know, there are expectations as opposed to somebody from the private sector that understands that there's a limited fund. You got a different lens that you're looking through. So I would only suggest that that's somewhat represented around this board here today. We have public sector workers that traditionally, most of their life worked in the public sector, have looked through a different lens versus people that every day have to make a decision on budgets and a limit on the budgets versus an unlimited amount going to the taxpayer. He said that they had the same issues there, and in Belleville, there's some concerns, and some of the comments being made, or he's been following the newspapers here, has indicated they feel very strongly and feel very much the same way. Cochrane, Ontario is an OPP policed facility, and their budget now is 50% of their overall community budget goes to police services. That's not a position I want to see Hamilton in ever. If you take a look at our budget now, it is double, almost double what it was in 2000. So every household in this community went from a $290 to almost over $600 on that assessment. So regardless of what your household is, you're looking at almost a doubling of your budget over that time frame. That's not sustainable. We have a report that clearly indicates that the police services budget since 2008 to today has increased 20.6%. The same time frame, all other services in with the city raised 13%. So obviously, the police service is eating more and more of the city capacity to provide services in this community. That's not sustainable. Some people talk about, well, you agreed on the budget. Well, I mean, that's a little bit of a game, because the reality is that I don't blame this association, quite frankly, to negotiate and try and match what other associations are receiving. Everyone's on they're all on the Ferris wheel, and no one wants to get off. They all agree that they're probably getting fairly compensated, but the system is the system, and no association executive is going to last very long if they demand less than what other associations are receiving. We know that arbitration, Windsor just went to arbitration, so the board obviously indicated that they're not supporting the
This
contract.
budget has nothing to do with salaries and benefits and collective agreements, and you'll have that opportunity at the
Madam
budget
Chair,
meeting.
Madam Chair, it has been part of the discussion on what makes up the overall budget. So what I'm suggesting is that that's a fix that needs to happen at the provincial level. Understanding when somebody at this board said, well, you agreed to the budget from 4 years ago. Well, the reality is that we already know what the constraints are, and the board has very little control over those restraints. As in Windsor, arbitrary comes in 12% over 3 years. So the issue is that's broken. So we have to play with the cards that are being dealt. Still, the budgets are going up significantly in the city of Hamilton. We know that we have a significant affordability issues in this community. And unfortunately, Madam Chair, some of the councillors are aware of, the people around this table are aware of those affordability issues in our community, because we hear it every day. We're scraping to provide social service for people in poverty. So when people pay rent, don't kid yourself, they're paying that police component on the rent. So everyone is affected by the police services budget in this community. There's an affordability issue in this community, and our staff have clearly indicated that. In fact, one of the highest affordability issues in all Ontario. All Ontario. So when you look at $30 this year, let's just be clear. It's gone up 20% since 2008. It's doubled since 2000 in the context of the police services budget. I don't blame the chief, Madam Chair. I do not blame the chief. The chief has a lens. He has a responsibility through the Adequacy Act, through the Police Services Act, and he has to provide the best recommendations he possibly can. The only thing that's absent in that process is the financial capacity in this community. Nowhere in any report did I see anything that talks about that, and maybe that's not the decision or within the purview of the chief. Maybe that's in the purview of this board to understand the ability for the community to pay. So I commend the chief for making very solid reports. I commend him for going out to the community. I attended 2 of the 3, and I want to be clear that all 32 people that showed up at all 3 meetings that were actual residents. I appreciate each and every one of the comments I heard at the 2 of them, and I had 2 people at the one in downtown that provided me the information what transpired there as well. When you start putting out issues like school liaison officers, Madam Chair, obviously you're going to have vice principals of schools concerned about that very legitimate service that's being provided, and sure they're going to show up and speak to it. when you put out that Coast could be one of the considerations for cut, of course you're going to have Coast show up and provide their input on how the impact might impact on them, and there's no reason why they wouldn't, because that was what was put out there in the context of consideration for cuts under the budget. So I guess my biggest concern, Madam Chair, is that Chief's job is ultimately to provide the safest community. Our job is to try to balance the safe piece with the affordability piece. I think the Chief has come a ways. When we started over 5%. We went down to 4.75, he's coming back at 3.9. I agree with the good councillor across the table. I've talked to all my councillor colleagues. Hospitals are being capped, teachers are being capped, doctors are being capped, everybody but police. Why? I mean, I don't know the answer to that question, but that's
Province didn't cap.
that's the feedback. That's the feedback I'm getting from the community. Is why is it that areas of first response or hospitals are being capped in regards to their overall budget less than the cost of inflation, and yet police services continue to rise well and above the cost of inflation. We know some of the answers to those questions. There's no question about the arbitration system. Again, my biggest concern is that the senior that I talked to yesterday that just sold their car so they can continue staying in their home, his wife is now in a home a block away so he can walk. And he says every time that budget comes in across, he has to now start making a decision to get rid of his home and try and find another location further away from his wife. And I think that's an unfortunate situation, although it's a real situation. A lot of seniors aren't fixed incomes, and every $30 you add onto their taxes is a difference between them staying in the neighborhood or having to leave. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I've heard the number again tonight, just $30. I know that number we've been talking about per household, not to belittle the number, but we were talking about that when it was 5.25. We're at 3.9 with an assessment that Mr. Whitehead rightfully is recognizing that was raised earlier, around 1%. I'm curious what that 2.9% increase would be, tax increase would be, because it's not $30 anymore. It's going to be, we're banting around that number, but I don't know if anyone has it, and if they don't.
It's $30 per 1%. $6 million on the budget is roughly 1%. And on an average household, it works out, the average house pays $3,000, I think that's the average tax. And 1% of 3,000 is 30.
Just we changed all the numbers, we're still using some of the, I just wanted to get a sense of what that was, to put it in perspective, but not to take away from all the fine comments. Okay, thank you.
Just briefly, I've been in private sector for 45 years, and 3 times a year for 45 years I had to prove to my employer through a rating that I was making him money. So I'm pretty objective about my duties as a member of this board, and I have to point out that as a counselor, I recall one city housing address, one address had 1,000 calls for service to that address in 1 year. And some of my colleagues even tried to prevent me from publicizing the number. The point is, it's the most vulnerable who will be put at the greatest risk if we're not providing adequate policing. And if the senior in their home is struggling, we understand that. But the worst thing for a senior, and especially single vulnerable seniors, is somebody crashing through their door or finding someone in the house. And believe me, the effects of crime on individuals, and I remember I used to get my coffee in the morning when at a certain coffee shop. And the next day I asked, well, where's the attendant who was always there? Somebody broke in, jumped over the counter, grabbed a hold of her, and she couldn't function anymore in that feeling safe in the place she worked. So the issue for us also has to include the vulnerable, especially children. And we've heard about the issues of child abuse and so on. Because there are people who have more resources who may feel much safer. Maybe they've got sentinels on their house and all of this. But we as a police service board have to encompass the entire community in terms of its safety and security. And I'll give you one more final thing. The previous mayor did a survey of about 1,000 people, and one of the survey questions was, what was your most important concern? And the number one was policing. If that relates to the question about whether people are content to pay the extra money or not, I don't know. But that was the result of that survey. Those are my comments. Thank you.
I'd like to call the question, please. That the Hamilton Police Services Board approve the 2013 Hamilton Police operating budget as amended. All in favor, please.
Could I get the mover and seconder, please?
Standing recorded vote.
Could I get a mover and seconder first?
Oh, sorry.
I'll move that.
Move it, second it. Irene, all in favor. Opposed? Thank you. Any new business? Adjournment? Bernie? Yes, sorry.
So based
New
on what...
business?
But based on what I've heard this from sitting around the table from you to the chief in terms of your long-term strategic level vision, putting in efficiencies, I'd like to propose that the Hamilton Police Service Board strike a committee to look at efficiencies, a subcommittee, so that we could monitor them, see achievements, and then along the way we can see where we are, so that again we can address some of your issues, Terry, around where these efficiencies are coming in. We see that some of the deferments, but I think to look at this subcommittee, put criteria in place, we should have a meeting, and put some criteria in place, how we move forward to look at these efficiencies and monitor them. And I think that would give us all an understanding moving forward on what are the challenges we face and how we could minimize and mitigate some of those moving forward.
That comment proves that we do have some outstanding members around the table who think that.
Having run a homeless shelter for 7 years, feeding 200 people a day, I know it's human conditions, Terry, and I don't like your comments around that. I don't understand the human condition.
I think that was very inappropriate. Okay,
I'd like to
That's why
second
this
that.
voice is chair, madam.
you're out of order, sir.
Well, so are you.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
I'd like to second that if I could.
yes?
But I'd like to add a friendly amendment if I could. One of the items I had spoken about was about facilities for the board meeting, and that could be one of the things that committee could deal with
Yes.
initially. That certainly would be very helpful.
Those are two things we'll definitely look at. Also, German.
Both.
Mayor, ready, thank you.